Okay, recording. We'll try this again. Another video. I got a YouTube channel going, and I got the first two videos to have subtitles. If you need those, let me know, and I can link you to them, and you can go back and look at them with subtitles. I don't know if there's anybody in the class that needs that, but it's a requirement. So I will be posting all of the videos that I create for this class to that channel. I kept it private just so that I don't know why I care if it's searchable or not, but I talked to people and they just said, oh, keep it private. I don't really care if anybody sees these videos other than you, but the advice I got was to keep it private. So I'm going to keep it private, and I will just send you all the links to the video, to the channel, I guess, or to the videos specifically. I'm really not sure about that. That might be why these first few videos are slow coming. I'm about to open week 2 of the class, so that's why I'm making this video. Let's just take a look at it, and I should let you know that I will be sending feedback. I'll be looking at all the discussion. I have looked at them, but I'll be looking at all of the discussion posts and giving feedback on, just making comments about your discussion posts, and giving feedback on assignments for the rest of the day. So that's going to be happening. If you need to talk to me about anything, I'll be around. I'll probably have lunch in like an hour and a half or an hour. So about 11:30, I might not be around for an hour or something like that. But just send me an email or put a message on Moodle. And if you have like a public question, again, the Q&A at the top of the page is a good place to put it. Let's just take a look at Moodle really quick. I don't have a lot of time. Oh, I guess I do now that I have YouTube, so that's confusing. Let me share my screen here. So taking a look at Moodle, it looks like, so you guys have all been complete. You've been working on week 1. It looks like people are making some great comments. I really appreciate the time you're spending doing the work. And if you do have any questions about the assignments, like the coding assignment, I wasn't sure if that was straightforward or not. Please just post it in the public Q&A. Remember, it's up here. You can just send me an email if you want, or send, that's fine. I don't care. But remember, the public Q&A here, the course Q&A, is at the top. And so I immediately get messages if there is a question, sort of like I'm alerted that there's a question there. And I added, so please do that. And then I added a share whatever forum. I appreciated that some people took advantage of it. Thank you, Sam and Daniel and Asher, for doing that. You don't have to, obviously. You don't have to post anything in these forums at all if you don't want to. But it's nice to see you all chatting with each other. And in the future forums in the class, I'm going to ask you guys to sort of give replies to each other. I'm taking it easy so far and just asking you to just post one comment. I'm not worried about you commenting on other people's stuff right now. I just want to see that you're reading and thinking about it, seeing what you're thinking, and we'll try to add replies in the coming weeks. You can see I didn't read a couple posts there, and I'm reading posts there. So make sure that you are that you're posting on those forums, because they do play a role in your participation in this class. So make sure that's happening. Now, let's take a look at week 2. I'm gonna do this fancy trick here and hit show week 2. So you guys, as of now, you should be able to see it. It's 10:32, which is weird. I'm like sort of like real-time class here. This video will be posted in the overview. So you just click here and it will be embedded to the overview. And I hope that works okay. From what I saw in the last videos, it seemed to work fine. And it takes a little bit to render these videos, so this video might not be up and ready with subtitles until like 11, I know. I need to figure out the scheduling of this a little bit better, but I'll get there. And I hope you understand it. It's a bit of a learning curve for me too. I've never taught a class exclusively online. I've taught a class like that uses the LMS stuff, and it's not too bad for me. And I've never used Moodle at this level before, and I've usually used other LMSs. So there's some stuff, as you all know, I'm still learning about how to use Moodle. So again, if there's any questions or anything's unclear, let me know about that. So your first assignments are coming open here. You'll be reading part 1, chapter 4 of Everything's an Argument. It's all about logos and arguments, so using facts and reason to create arguments, which is essentially what you're doing in your fuse writing. Is you need to be constructing a argument. Yes, using ethos and pathos, but the meat of what we're looking for here is that you can construct an argument using facts and reason. Obviously, other aspects play a role, but you'll be focusing mainly on using your sources as, to some extent, factual evidence, research done by experts in the field. You'll be parading those facts across the pages of your argument, and you'll be using reason to connect those sources. So the text, Everything's Argument, does a fantastic job of really laying out different ways in which logos can be deployed. It's really explicit. Again, that's why I'm using it. If there's anything unclear, make sure that can be a part of your post. But your post for this is really just, you're reading a section. You don't have to read all of this. If you remember, let's take a look at the syllabus. So we're here week 2, April 14th. I say choose a section to read of chapter 4, Everything's an Argument, and post your paraphrase of the author's intent. And then I say also post an example of the logos from a source you plan on using for your fuse essay. That's redundant to say essay because the E in fuse is essay. So I don't know, I shouldn't do that. It's like saying the hoi polloi. You don't need to say the hoi polloi. You say hoi polloi. Anyway, that's a ridiculous thing. You can look up hoi polloi some other time on your own. If you already know what it is, then you can just think I'm being pedantic. Anyway, so you're going to be summarizing, or paraphrasing, I should say. I want you to try to condense the author's intent in the section into a paraphrase. So really, what's your take on it? It'll be a bit of a summary / paraphrase because of the extent of the argument. But the intent of the author, I'm really just looking at, what do you think? Like, you could do it. I obviously haven't posted any length requirements for any of these things. So be as concise as you would like to be in your understanding of the intent of the author in the section that you're reading. The idea of a paraphrase, for the most part, what I'm looking for is that you can tell yourself, or like imagine someone who doesn't says, hey, what are you reading? That you could tell them in maybe in 20 seconds what you're reading, which sounds kind of like a summary. But again, you could just really concisely pare down or distill whatever you want to say, what verb or verb phrase you want to use, what it is that you're reading, what do you think the author wants you to get out of it. You don't need to say what you're reading, just what do you think the author wants you to get out of it. So I don't want to confuse you. Paraphrase the author's intent. What do you think they want you to understand about logos based on the way they put it together? How should you view it? Now, I'm only asking you to read a section of it because and it doesn't matter. You can choose any of the sections. I don't care. I don't care if everybody ends up reading the same section. It's kind of annoying if everybody did, but whatever, I don't care. Because I want you to identify a section that you think is interesting to you and that you think would be practical to your argument. So if you start reading a section, you're like, this doesn't really, I don't really like the way this is put together. Just stop reading it and read a different one. So like maybe, skim each section, really, just say, oh, what's this one about? And then after you find one that kind of that seems to be your style or mode or whatever you want to say, what speaks to you in terms of how you would like to construct the logos of your argument. Read that one deeply and then paraphrase the author's intent and then use that logos, so that the one you've read, find an example from one source, as it says here, right? Post an example of logos from a source you plan on using. So in it really doesn't have to fall directly in line with how the text is describing the logos. But what I would like you to try to do is find something from your sources that to you is really demonstrating the form of logos that is described by Lunsford et al. In Everything's an Argument. So that because I want you to see how it might be constructed, so that in the future you could construct your own form of that logo. So there's resonance. That's what I'm looking for here. Is you're identifying an example so that it resonates with you, and so you can move forward and say, well, I might use this to construct my own logos. And you might find that something's working for you, especially when we get to later on when you guys do your podcast presentations. We're looking exclusively at causal argument, which rolls right into logos. And so you might find that like, oh, you have this form of logos that you are that you're using throughout the entire paper, that you're not using multiple forms of logos. That makes a lot of sense for the length of the paper, and just for your own sense of continuity or coherence. But you might also find that there are multiple forms of logos that you're relying on. And I'm hoping that more people read more than one section of the chapter, meaning like people are reading different sections, so that you can go back and look at what someone said about a different section without having to read the whole thing, and getting an idea of how that's constructed and what the examples that they post from that type of logos. And if not, I'll go back and summarize them. Even if you do, I'll go back and summarize that in the summary for week 2, sort of what I'm hoping you'll understand about the forms of logos. And I'll make comments on the threads about the forms of logos that you're reading about. And so that hopefully we're gathering some tools to build the fuse. You also have some no red ink exercises you'll start this week, and you'll be reading for the actual content, the science, magic, and religion part of the class. You can begin reading. You can read it in a sitting. It's not very long. I think it's like 12 pages, maybe 11. So it's not very long. And it's just an excerpt from the Andrea Hairston's Mindscape, which blends together, and you guys are very astute. And I know you like listening to Okafor talk about the idea of Afro-African futurism, and in this case, Hairston starts to bring in the idea of what we might perceive as indigenous futurism. And so I'm hoping that you'll see a connection, and as well, sort of an expansion on, or maybe I don't want to sound like a grad student, hybridity or blending of the types of futurism into a cultural recovery or cultural, I don't want to say I guess reclamation of scientific and magical as well as religious thinking that that and I and it's not going to be like every indigenous tribe in America, but that sort of taking this and we are bit glossing the idea that it looks this way. And I did say pan-indigenous, and I don't mean to say that all indigenous people believe the same thing in the same way. And there's obviously a roiling fight over what that means in academia between indigenous academics themselves. And so, and some form of the fact that, like, in order to reclaim and revive particular indigenous types of thought from um, specific tribes, that there needs to be a form of pan in indigenous thinking, because without it, there isn't the sort of critical mass um, to fight back against the dominant narratives in the dominant culture. And so that resistance to pan-indigenous is one that's sort of problematic in some ways, because to resist it, there you can resist it locally, but when you start to enter into academia, which is overwhelmed by dominant culture narratives of what is science and what is religion and what is magic, then just having idiosyncratic or a particular cultural narrative really is overwhelmed. So some scholars, like one of the most famous, Vine Deloria Jr., he does promote sort of a pan-indigenous thinking in academia, and a way of understanding the world as an indigenous way, or as a specifically Native American way. He actually is willing to accept that there is a difference between a Native American worldview and a Euro-American worldview. And so he's willing to sort of walk the line, you could say. That's a really terrible phrase, of trying to understand that to be a part of one's culture, for their tribal perspective, it can't be occluded, occluded, OCCLUD, by the idea of a dominant indigenous culture. But it certainly, there are aspects of Native American thinking, or or the pre-European thinking, or the non-European thinking, or there's a non-Eurocentric worldview that is common among many indigenous populations from northern Canada to the tip of South America. So, and that is not to say that they all fall into the same way of thinking, but that, like I said before, one way to combat, it's not like a fight, but to some extent it is, one way to deal with the, I should make this maybe bigger while I'm having this conversation with you. We're not just looking at the syllabus. One way to deal with the dominant narrative is to create your own dominant narrative. And like I said, there is resistance to this within the indigenous community. We're not going to investigate that specifically, but we are going to use this story as a way to understand to some extent where or how we might enter into a conversation about Native American ideas of science, magic, and religion, and obviously totally alighting the rest of the historical narratives that have gone along with it. This is just one way of looking at it in the limited time that we have. I guess you could, I mean, you easily, and there are, if you are interested in this, and you want to check it out, the Native American Studies Department, I've noticed actually has classes or a class specifically on this. So you could take a class by PhDs in Native American Studies who could inform you better than I can. I'm simply bringing to bear a way of thinking about this so that we're not just stuck in this sort of Euro-American worldview. We are going to be going back to that, though, later on. We're going to be bringing back more ways of Euro-American thinking and sort of use the texts to start to question that. How do we think about it? So we'll be looking at them again through this sort of a new perspective. So that's that. Just so this doesn't get totally out of hand. I want to look back at Moodle again. And so you have that. I don't know why this is still hidden. That's weird. Show. So all this stuff is the assignments for the week are, and then, so you have the everything's an argument reading. You have the post that is there. So you just, and I don't know why I have, I'm going to take a look at this syllabus again. So you're just posting for this assignment. And so I need to actually take that assignment off of there. I don't know why I left that there. So you're not submitting any specific assignments to me directly for this week. You're only posting on forums. So if you go back to Moodle, I can completely get rid of this. I'll just delete that. So you guys can see that's gone. So the forum one, you're posting your paraphrase and author's intent and your example of logos from a source. You're then going to be reading They Say, I Say, pages 223 to 228. That kind of gives you, again, some of those templates that they use, ideas to think about for introductions. And then what I would like you to do is post a draft of your introduction with a thesis statement so that one of your classmates can give you a review on that, sort of just how they think it falls into line with what Graff and Birkenstein say about forming an introduction. So just really what I'm looking for there, and maybe I'll give a little bit more specific information in that forum. I'm looking just for some general feedback from a classmate. Like, does it sound coherent? Does it sound like it's following what Graff and Birkenstein say? So like, really, is your thesis statement, is it clear? Is it, does it sound like it's posing a real open question there? Your thesis statement shouldn't be a question, but is the statement like, does it sound like there is a way for you to argue it? Is it open? But again, you should be sort of looking at what Graff and Birkenstein say about it, and say, like, sort of following what they're looking for in introductions. And I'll give you feedback on that next week. So that'll be coming. But I want your classmates to take a look at it first and see, who's doing what moves people are making, how they're introducing, what's there. So you guys are sort of seeing what each other are doing before I give you guys any specific feedback. So you're going to be posting a draft there that won't be due until next Monday. So you got almost a week to work on that if you get going on it now. And then like I said, you'll be reading from Mindscape you'll be posting on Mindscape, and that's it for the week. So it's a pretty lightish week. I mean, I know you have work to do to identify the example of logos. That takes some time, but then what I'm really hoping you do is you'll take a fair amount of time is drafting your introductions and your thesis statements, and giving feedback. That's what I'm hoping for. So I put deadlines on all that stuff, so it should be pretty clear. If you guys have any questions or comments, let me know in the Q&A up top, or send me an email. And that's pretty much it. I don't think I missed anything there. And like I said, this video will appear in the overview, and probably then, in 15 minutes or maybe 30 minutes from now. So that's it. And then you'll see this afternoon that I will be posting feedback to discussion forums and getting feedback on the assignments from last week. And then I'll post a video summary of the week as well. So that is it. Thanks.